Welcome to the Leading with No Regrets podcast. I'm so excited you get to join us today. This is where leaders from across the world get equipped to know how to disciple the men in their community and men even beyond their community. And I'm so excited because in this season, we're in a series where we get to connect with some of the individuals who are going to be part of the No Regrets conference, some of our speakers. And I'm so excited that you get to meet with Bob Merritt. He's a good friend of the No Regrets and is somebody who has come alongside the church for many years. Bob was the senior pastor of Eagle Brook Church and just led it beautifully. And about 5 years ago, just around when COVID was happening, he transitioned out of it and is now, upon retirement, but serving the church and as an author, speaker, somebody who is just a huge influence in the local church. And I'm so excited we get to have this conversation with Bob. Bob, thank you so much for joining our podcast today.
Albo, thank you. It's an honor. And looking forward to No Regrets.
Yeah, so great, man. Yep. Yeah. I know you and I were talking earlier and we were just talking about how the transitions have happened. Like you transitioned and retired out of Eagle Brook and you just sensed that it was time and you transitioned just before it hit. And I am really, really keen to know just some of the things that you've learned as you are looking back at the many, many years of just really successful ministry. And as we look at this last 5 years, so I'm just keen to see some of the lessons God has been teaching you so far in this time.
I've been asked the question many, many times, how did this happen?
Right.
Talking about our church, that, we started with 300 people. And then when I retired, we were 28,000 with 10 campuses. And that's something that I never saw coming. I never planned on that, really didn't want it. In fact, I'm an introvert. I basically don't like crowds and tolerate people. But, God had other plans. And so we just went to work every day and did the best I could in preaching and leading and stayed focused on those two things, preaching and leading. And we started to grow a little bit. And again, 30 years later, we were a very large church with, 400 staff. And to this day, Albo, I look back and I think, how did this happen? Why did God put his hand on me, a very average, not a great student, not flashy, bald, I'm small. I just have so many things that disqualify me, if I can put it that way, from being any sort of impactful church leader. But a couple of things I would say. I stayed humble. I stayed teachable. And I rolled up my sleeves every day and did the best I could. Other people would say, Bob, just wait. This is going to be an impactful church. And I would say, well, I don't know what you're talking about. I don't see it. It was a struggle from day one. So when people say, how did this happen? It happened slowly, with a lot of conflict, with a lot of grit, with a lot of pain. In fact, 10 years in, I almost lost it. I almost lost the entire church ministry. We can talk about that if you'd like. And that was a painful point that almost took me out, but it probably also saved me. So,
wow.
I don't know how it all happened, Albo, except that I was willing and available, and God put his hand on me and said, let's go.
I am so excited that we can have this conversation with you because many of our listeners are leaders who have experienced both the success and the pain of leading, whether it's in the corporate space, in church space, in the nonprofit world, and they're trying to just wrap their minds around what goes into these things. How do you retain your soul in the course of that? Now, this is what I know about just the fruit of your work. By the time you were retiring, Eagle Brook had 10 locations, and since then they've added another 4 locations, and you've seen this momentum continue to build. And God has given you a very unique role as you come alongside other churches and how to help them bolster their leadership. I'd love for our listeners to get to know a bit about that.
Yeah, so again, it's been 5 or 6 years since I retired and handed the reins off to Jason Strand, my successor. And I got to tell you, retirement is a weird thing. I was 63 when I did that, and there's loss. I felt extreme loss, grief. Who am I? People say your job shouldn't be your identity. I didn't know how to separate myself, just like that, from being Pastor Bob to now just, being a person that shows up at Dunkin' Donuts coffee in the morning. The church was an extreme part of my identity, and it still is. I said to you earlier, Albo, I'm a church guy. I
Yep.
love the church. I love the local church. I love who Jesus is, and that he said, I will build the church and the gates of hell won't prevail against it. I am a church person. It is a part of who I am, and it'll always be that. So there was tremendous loss, tremendous grief, and really, I didn't know who I was or what I was supposed to do. So it took me, several months really to kind of sort through that. One thing I did do is take my time, and I gave myself permission to not have everything planned out, but just let God speak to me and lead me. Stuck my toes in the water after I rested for 6 months, but I began to accept a couple invitations. Some of those went well, some didn't go so well, but stayed with it a little bit and found that I really, really connected. I mean, like I said, I'm a church guy, grew up in the church. I know the church world. And so I began establishing an ongoing relationship with 3 different churches at this point, actually 4 with our own. Man, that's been so rich and so rewarding, not only for me, but for the pastor of that church and the churches themselves. So, I go in and speak 3 or 4 times a year with these 4 churches, and I've gotten to know their board members. I'm able to advise and encourage and cheerlead. And I'll tell you what, the acceleration factor in each of these churches is significant.
Wow.
But they all run into problems, financially. Should we build a building? Shouldn't we build a building? Should we expand? Should we open up campuses? I've got a conflict over here. I've got a board issue over here. And I've seen it all. And so for me to be able to saddle up next to some of these churches, some of these pastors, has been really, really, really good for me and for them.
Wow. I just want to thank you on behalf of many, many local churches. Every church wishes that they had that. And maybe there are some leaders out there who are leading congregations and they do have their board, they have their congregation, but both of those are almost like dual bosses. And they do not have that cheerleader person. And maybe this is what they need to be thinking about. Who can come alongside them? It's not just the accountability group. It's somebody who loves the church, loves the person, loves the congregation, and is able to be a cheerleader for them to be able to accelerate some of the things that they're getting to do. I think so many more of Bob Merritts in this role need to show up in the local church. And I think that would be phenomenal. I can imagine that's what Paul was doing with the churches that he got to visit. One of the things I like to ask leaders about is about their, what I call a leadership conversion moment. And I don't mean when they said yes to Jesus the first time. I mean something that has happened in the journey. And I think every leader should have multiple conversion moments. But something that's happened in the course of the journey that has shaped or has informed the trajectory of how they do ministry, life, and relationships. And I'm curious which one you'd want to point to. I'm sure there's many. Would you point us to one?
It doesn't take me long.
Go for it.
I believe, Albo, that pain is the best teacher in life. And so
we don't like to hear that, but I guess
no, we don't like to hear it. But it's not the only teacher, but I think it's the most impactful one. So 10 years into my leadership at Eagle Brook, we had grown from 300 people to about 8,000. And it was all consuming. At one point, we were running 7 services. And I was just completely a basket case. People didn't really know that. My wife knew it. My kids felt it. I was over my head, but I didn't know how to stop. I didn't know how to say time out. If I keep on this same pace, I'm not going to make it.
Yeah.
And so I was in my early 40s. The church, by all metrics, was doing extremely well, but behind the scenes, I was collapsing. And when you're exhausted, you're not at your best. And so when I'm at my worst, I get real sharp. I get real harsh in my language. I get ultra critical, short. I mean, I can be very abrasive and cutting. I'm an introvert, but I have a somewhat forceful personality that I have to always try to manage. And so the board began to see this misbehavior, and they began hearing from my staff. We were a staff probably about 120 at that point. And behind the scenes, they were meeting without me. My board was deciding what to do with me. Came to a board meeting one night, and they decided, and this is what they said. Dean Hager was our chairman. He said, the reason for our board meeting tonight is one thing, and that's to decide if Bob Merritt should continue as our pastor. My jaw dropped right to the table. I thought, you got to be kidding me.
Wow, that is sobering.
There was a piece of me that says that was saying, how dare you? Well, they dared. They dared. And I realized those 8 people held my fate and my career in their hands.
Fascinating.
And they took a vote that night to either keep me or fire me. And they decided they would give me a second chance if I went to a full-on, full-year intervention with a leadership coach, psychologist, counselor. And that guy, Fred Keel, interviewed everybody who knew me, my friends, my colleagues, my staff, interviewed my mom, my brother, my sisters, anybody who knew Bob Merritt, this guy interviewed and asked 2 questions essentially. What's good about Bob? What's bad about Bob? He put together 230 pages of feedback in a binder that he and his assistant read back to me word for word. And
you just had to sit. You just had to sit there and listen.
I just sat there for 2 days at his retreat center, just taking bullet after bullet after bullet.
I'm just hearing leaders out there saying, nope.
It was brutal. I'll just say this for your listeners. I've written about this many times. My son, he read back to me what my son said. David was 15 at the time, and he said, I just want to know why my dad is so angry all the time. And it crushed me. And, that was the turning point, along with all this other avalanche of feedback I got. And I said to Fred Keel, I said, am I going to be able to overcome this?
Right.
And his statement was very interesting. He said, well, about 40% of leaders like you are able to overcome it and continue to lead. I said, well, what's the main factor?
Right.
The humility. Humility. Will you have enough humility to receive the feedback, own it, and change?
Craziness. Hey, Bob, I can imagine there's multiple sets of leaders out there listening to this. One is leaders who are becoming aware as you speak that, they are maybe board level, they're elders at the church, and they are seeing some of these, what you call these behaviors coming out. And they wouldn't want to be the reason why someone's career vocation, gets derailed, and the fear of being able to even have those conversations. And I just want to celebrate that group of men that were like, we will be willing to actually have an honest conversation for the sake of the mission of the church. And then there's also leaders out there, and you're the person who knows. You just know that you are carrying that angst, that low level and sometimes high level, just anger, anxiety, and your team can feel it, type of thing, and you don't know where to go. To imagine from your story, Bob, that God is interested in even changing that story and script, which is absolutely amazing. Yeah, so thanks for sharing that moment with us. Now, when you're talking, you're allowing me to lead to the next question. I like to ask leaders all the time, and which I don't know if it's too soon, but I like to ask the question, what annoys you?
This one's
because
easy too.
yeah, what annoys you, and the reason I ask about that is not just like we're not tapping into that broken side of you, but there's sometimes something missional out of you that just makes you go, oh, this shouldn't be, could be
Yeah,
better type of
so
thing. Hit me.
attention to detail, when that's lacking, that
Mhm.
annoys me. When
Right.
people, could be staff, doesn't matter, are sloppy and don't excel and try to be excellent. And I know excellence gotten a bad rap over the years, but I just
Mm.
think I just think God deserves our best, and it requires effort. And so it annoys me when people show up ill prepared, if they're church leaders or musicians or whatever it is. I
Right.
just have a very short patience for that. But the one thing that really is bothersome to me, and maybe this has to do with my own journey through counseling and leaning into my issues. I don't have a lot of patience, Albo, and I'll just use a couple of examples of men who are
Mhm.
in my friendship group who refuse to take responsibility for their spiritual growth. And it's like, when are you going to read a book? When are you going to have your own personal devotional Bible study? When are you going to make church attendance an absolute priority, never miss, for you and for your family? And I just have such low tolerance for men, especially, who know better.
Mm.
They've had a front row seat. They've been a friend of mine for many, many years. And it's like, you're still a child. And we all make mistakes, but if I'm going to be spending time and friendship equity with someone, man, you got to come to the table with something.
Mm.
And so if it's just your golf game or your golf score or the same old story I heard 20 years ago, grow up. I'm just, so now we're all at different, stages of growth, but I'm just so annoyed by 55, 60-year-old men who've been a Christian all their lives and they haven't grown squat.
Mm.
I get annoyed by that.
Are you looking for a Bible study that will forge a deep and lasting connection with other guys? Then the Base Camp Bible Study Series is for you. Base Camp is a series of studies that will guide your men through the scriptures, addressing core disciplines of the Christian faith, while challenging them to become authentic and committed followers of Jesus. Each lesson includes a digital study guide, teaching videos, and leader notes to help facilitate transformative discussions. Start your spiritual journey today with Basecamp. Visit noregretsmen.org/Basecamp. Again, that's noregretsmen.org/Basecamp.
I don't want to assume all your friends are like that, but it sounds like you have enough people around you that remind you that something is not where it should be. In your time with them, have you even asked some of them what keeps you there? And what keeps you in that place where you're not taking ownership? We're not doing what you say. We call it owning your faith. Do you have an idea of some of the things that keep men in that rut?
Yeah, I just, some of it, Albo, I think is just an arrogance. Again, especially men. I don't want to beat up on men. I mean, I don't mean to, but some men are just so arrogant, so prideful. I know it all. I'm skilled. I have some abilities, and doggone it, you're not going to teach me anything.
Mhm.
I'm a man. I'm tough. Behind all that, though, there's an insecurity. There's a deep insecurity in these guys, but arrogance is the biggest one, a prideful, self-centered arrogance. And to me, that's a recipe for stagnation.
Mm-hmm.
And really missing out on the joy of life, missing out on relational warmth and whatever.
That's crazy. As you talk about it, I'm struck that some of the people you're talking about is not like they are naturally slothful, though. Any other part of their life, you can see there's effort, there's intentionality, there's investment, there is major sacrifice. But when it comes to their faith, just I guess that arrogance keeps tripping us up to think either we know or to think that we shouldn't aspire for it. And I'm actually thinking about it now. When you're coming up to speaking at this conference, our theme is surrender, which is an interesting theme to have for men's conference because for a good part, the word surrender is a negative term in our men's world, you know. And as you're thinking about the theme coming up, what are some things God is doing in your heart right now, Bob, as you're leaning into this theme to talk about surrender for men and for leaders of
So
men?
I actually love the theme, and it's fresh in my mind right now. We talked about I've been retired for 5 years now. When I first retired, a lot of guys said you should join a golf course. So I did. First time in my life, and golf 5 times a week, 5 times early in the morning till noon. Came home, crashed, got up from a nap about 2:00, and that was fun, but it wasn't fulfilling. I learned a little bit about myself, because we're told when you retire you ought to consume, you ought to just enjoy life. It's a very self-centered philosophy. And I found out, Albo, that is a dead end. It's not, like I said, it was fun, but it wasn't fulfilling. What I found is that fulfillment is on the other side of sacrifice. And so I dislike Zoom calls immensely.
I can tell you about that. We should have driven many hours to hang out this way, man.
It's a sacrifice. In fact, I was in my deer stand this morning and would still be there, except that I had this Zoom call. It's a sacrifice for me to climb down out of the tree, believe it or not, throw on a nice shirt over my camo.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Yes, and look somewhat presentable to you. And then sit here and wait for the Zoom call to begin, because I'm always early, and then, whatever. I just detest Zoom calls, and that's just, but it's a sacrifice, a small one, but I can tell you on the other side of this is fulfillment.
Right.
First of all, I've gotten to know you a little bit. Second of all, some people will be listening to this conversation and maybe resonate with that and make a connection there. But I have found that I need to be willing to give some things up.
Wow.
Because that's where fulfillment and joy and purpose is found.
Right.
You can't find that just golfing every day or serving myself or traveling all the time and focused on myself, my comfort, my consumption. So wow. I love this theme of surrender.
I love it.
It's not that you give your life up. Like I said, I was still deer hunting this morning. But you find ways to give up.
So great.
For something better. I don't know if that's an example or not.
No, that is beautiful. I love it. I love it. Hey, Bob, I was curious if you imagine the Bob who was just about to launch Eagle Brook many years ago. Yeah. Young guy, partly excited, partly scared, very aware of both strengths and opportunities and weaknesses and all of that stuff. What would you want to say to that dude? The 1991 thereabouts kind of Bob?
1991, yep. 1991. I was 34 years old. I would have said, go to counseling, get help, get help now. Begin to understand how God made you. Begin to understand your strengths and your weaknesses. Bob, at 34 years old, Bob, get help. Get some professional coaching. Get it as soon as you can. Ask the church to invest in you. Ask them for some time off. Send me to some coaching, some counseling. Get some help. That's number one. Number two, I would have hired a teaching pastor sooner than I did.
Wow.
The teaching task is so difficult and so demanding, and the bar doesn't go down, it keeps going up because of online church. You're not competing with the church, the Lutheran church down, nothing against Luther. You're not competing with the Methodist church down the road. You're competing with online church. So anybody can dial in, southeast person out of Louisville, North Point, Atlanta, you name it. They can dial anybody up. And so the bar for preaching keeps going up. It doesn't go down. And I believe that preaching is the top priority in every church. It should be.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So the burden, I don't believe any speaker, any preacher can preach these days. I don't think they can go 48 weekends a year and expect to meet that demand.
Mm.
So, but I was doing that. I was doing 48 weekends a year, and it was just killing me. And I would have hired a teaching pastor soon.
Mm-hmm.
Or what we do today is, churches contract speakers as well. So they fly them in from wherever.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
I'm telling you, it's a lifesaver. And I would have done those two things. I'd have gotten help for my personal issues, which were many and still are. And I would have gotten help in the preaching area. Those two things I'd have told my
Beautiful.
own self.
Beautiful. And it's fascinating too.
I'd have tried to love better.
Oh, you have to say more than that. Yeah. That's like you have to unpack that one a little bit.
I viewed my staff as people to get the job done. The word transactional versus transformational leading. I was very transactional. Mm-hmm. You're hired to do a job, show up, go home, come back tomorrow, do the same thing. I had zero relationship with my staff. Part of it with the train was running so fast, I didn't feel like, but that's a mistake. That's a bad excuse. I would have tried to love better. I remember the day, it's about 12, 13 years in, I was thinking, who are my friends?
Ooh.
Who are my friends? And I really didn't have any. And I looked around our leadership table. There were 8 leadership team members and myself. And I remember the day I decided, hey, my best friend doesn't live in Michigan. Mm-hmm. My best friend doesn't live in Chicago somewhere. My best friend doesn't live in Milwaukee. The opportunity for friendship is sitting right here in this room. These 8 people. And I can tell you, every single one of those 8 people had flaws.
Mm-hmm.
They were not perfect. But guess who else wasn't perfect? Yeah.
You what?
I was so far from perfect, so flawed. I made a decision. I'm going to start investing and befriending these 8 people. And that was transformation.
That's huge.
That brought so much joy into my life. It was a sea change. So your opportunities, I say to anybody who's listening to this, your best opportunities for friendship are the people around you.
Mm-hmm.
And nobody's perfect. So stop expecting it.
Yeah. And I think the joy and the invitation for leaders and men out there is, if you lead with that sense of abundance when it comes to friendship, you can always keep working on it all the way to your deathbed. You can always keep connecting with new people because God has surrounded you with some people. And I find many men lamenting, man, I don't have my college friends anymore, my seminary friends. I don't have my high school friends anymore.
Yeah, I don't either.
Folks we planted churches with anymore. Yeah. And to think like we just blow over the people God has already given us for friendship right now, imagining that the past ones will be it. It's great.
Now, to be fair, I had to fire 3 of those people eventually.
Ooh.
But one of the things I've learned over the years, Albo, is that you can have a staff member who's really, really good for 10 years.
Mm-hmm.
And then they're not. Either something happened in their character or a change in their own direction in terms of, they're no longer 100% on board with the mission that you're trying to achieve. It could be a number of things. It could be attitude. It could be they just moved. And so one of the things a leader has to really understand is you might look around the table and think, I hope we do life together for the rest of our lives. But that's a pipe dream. You're going to lose people along the way for whatever reason. It tears your heart out. But that's life and that's leadership.
That is such a powerful leadership lesson. And especially when you need to make a decision like that, you're talking 10, 15 years in with
Yeah.
deep legacy for, I think many leaders struggle with. Does that say that is the culmination of the entire friendship, that, I was no longer essential or productive type of thing? And to be able to say, no, it's just a decision for what is happening right now. This is just not the time for you. And that's a hard one.
It is.
Having to fire non-friends even is hard enough. To fire a friend, oh, please, that's tough. That is wild. That's wild. Yeah. Hey, another question I love to ask leaders, and I'm curious about this for you. You have, it sounds in your voice, you just have a new season, you have a new momentum in how you're leading, how you're looking at life. I'm curious, what are some things you have on your dashboard, maybe even on horizon, leadership lessons you're working on, projects you are on, things you're even trying to figure out that may not be fully settled, but they're just kind of running behind the scene?
Yeah, I mean, I don't have a aha for you. I've written 3 books. They were really quite good. They didn't sell, but they were quite good. The platform was really small back then when I wrote. Today, it's actually, with social media, substantial. I've thought of writing again. I just need to be struck with a deep conviction of what to write on. I've actually considered reworking one of my books called Get Wise. It's one of the best reads. I go back and read what I've written here in Get Wise, and it's like, God had to have written that, because the title is poor. And I think there could be a lane for that, to repurpose that book and rewrite it, refreshen it. So some of those, as far as authorship, are on the horizon. But again, Albo, I said to you earlier, I don't know if we said it during this recording or not, part of my new reality is to not know what's next and be okay with that. And there's a piece in there of just trusting God day by day for what he has for me. And one of the things I wrote during the season in my life about that is that if I have everything planned out according to my will, it can actually prevent me from seeing what God has planned according to his will. So if I've got my life all scheduled, all planned out, I can actually block it or miss God's voice and purpose and will for me. And so I've just gotten very comfortable with not having everything planned out by month, by year, whatever. And I've got things on the calendar. My calendar is pretty congested. I've just gotten real good. God, what do you have for me this day? What do you have for me around the corner, and being okay with it?
That is huge. I mean, as some leaders are listening to that out there, they're probably listening to this podcast as they do a whole bunch of other things at the same time. And the idea of not having a plan or type of thing, it's just absolutely scary. I mean, I come from an engineering background where if you didn't plan, it is considered an abuse of your, whatever it is, your responsibility, your leadership, whatever it is. And so it's a different countercultural way to live. And as I listen to you, even in your voice, I'm hearing life, that is coming out of it, and a sense of the joy of coming out of a place of dependence. And that is just beautiful and amazing.
Part of that, my chocolate lab is waiting outside the door, ready to go pheasant hunting. He's just waiting for me to get done with this so we can go hunting together.
Right.
It's true.
Hey, do you have a one-line teaser for your talk for the conference? Anything men out there need to know as they prepare to come for a conference?
Yeah. I'm going to be talking about 4 absolute fundamental principles that every marriage needs for intimacy.
Ooh.
And it's going to be fun. It's going to be funny. But it's also going to be, we're going to dial in. I think it's one thing to be married, but I don't want to be just married.
Right.
Again, we're 68. We've been married 47 years. And to quote Tim Keller, I've been married to 7 different people. It's the same wife, but change. I mean, all kinds of changes. So you got to navigate this thing. And I can tell you that we have had our share of conflict. We've had our share of frustration, where there's seasons of, I don't even like you.
Oh, I can't wait.
This comes out of personal experience, a lot of reading. So I can't wait for it. Yeah.
Bob, you've been such a delight. It's so great having you on this podcast. I can't wait to connect with you in person when you'll be coming to town here.
Yeah,
it's going to be
awesome.
a fabulous time. Enjoy hunting. It sounds like that's your agenda for the rest of today.
Yeah, thank you, Albo. God bless.
Right. God bless you too.
Thank you for joining the No Regrets Leadership Podcast. For more information and to access past recordings, please visit www.noregretsmen.org/podcast.
Life Camp USA is a nonprofit organization that mentors young men who have lost a father due to military or law enforcement service. Life Camp USA provides an all-expenses-paid, week-long, world-class camp experience that inspires, equips, and navigates these fatherless young men through some of life's toughest moments. Life Camp USA's mentors serve grieving families by helping these sons establish healthy identities, values, character, and goals without the crucial aid of a father in their life. To learn more about Life Camp's mission, visit lifecampusa.org. Again, that's lifecampusa.org.